What's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. What is this, 2 videos in a week? What is this, you madman? Well, part of my reasoning for not doing so many videos is the recording quality on the last couple of videos hasn't been that great. But now, with 3080 is here, I'm able to record it in a quality I'm actually happy with and I hope that you enjoy. So with that said, what is the focus of today's video? Well, it's the newest frame to have come out, one that's had several buffs by now. We are of course taking a look at the broken frame themselves, Xaku. Now before launching into that, give a quick shout out to our partner Steel Series. I've joined forces with them to give away a whole load of codes for Warframe booster packs. Included in the pack are a Thorax Sindana, Matisse colour palette and a 3-day affinity booster. Just head on over to the link in the description below to pick that up. Make sure to keep an eye on my Twitter and my Discord because Steel Series have been kind enough to give me an Arctis 9 headset to give away. And the giveaway for that is going to go live shortly after this video goes up today. With that said, into the video we go. Xaku has had 2 rounds of buffs since their launch because honestly, when they launched they weren't in a very good state. Poor survivability, some of the abilities didn't have very good synergy, they were way too energy hungry, and their playstyle was basically not a lot more than a timer simulator. So what are we going to focus on with their build now that is going to properly change things? Well, let's look at the abilities we're focusing on. Zarta's Whisper, Pillage, which is replacing the Grasp of Loke, and the Vast Untime Xaku's 4. Whisper. There's not a lot to talk about with this one. It's a damage buff that adds void damage to your weapons. However, what does need talking about is that it's actually a lot stronger than people give it credit for, because it works differently to the way the augmented damage buffs like Venom Dose work. Venom Dose and abilities similar to that on the ones, the augmented ones, they add damage relative to the modded base damage of the weapon, much in the same way that an elemental mod adds elemental damage onto a weapon. Zartu's Whisper, however, takes a percentage of your weapon's total damage and adds that on as void damage. So the harder the weapon hits, the more damage gets added as void by Whisper. This means that while Venom Dose might appear to be vastly superior, for example my Sarin build gets an additional 260% corrosive damage, the difference between the two is actually not as big as it looks, despite looking massively inferior at only 57% with my current Xaku build. Especially though when you combine it with the synergy from Vast Untime, which makes all enemies hit by the explosion of the ability 50% more vulnerable to void damage. That further boosts the effectiveness of Whisper, where it actually surpasses the first ability damage buffs in a large number of cases. The first ability damage buffs also dilute your status procs, so if you want pure viral and slash, adding corrosive on through a buff like you do with Sarin, it dilutes the number of viral and slash procs you get, whereas Whisper doesn't do this at all. It's an additional proc, not one that procs instead of something else that you're trying to mod for. It's this functional difference between these two and the lack of understanding of these differences which has led to a lot of people thinking the damage buff from Whisper is trash, when in fact it's really not. All of this is before mentioning the void status effect gives you a mini bullet attract, which will either be on the head or the body depending on where you actually proc. This can cause enemies not only to damage themselves, but because it's like a bullet attract, it also draws fire away from you, acting like another layer of damage reduction, which at high level can be super useful. Pillage, it doesn't need an introduction, does it? AoE armor and shield strip, turning those strip defenses into shield and overshield for your frame whilst removing status procs, resetting your shield gate and giving you fantastic survivability. We all know how good Pillage is at this point. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that. We're not modding specifically for Xaku's 3, The Lost. However, Gaze from that ability is one that we can use in choke points like doors to completely strip enemies of their defenses. Nice little bit of utility that we have at our disposal, even if we're not building specifically for it. Finally is Vast Untime, the 4. This is going to be the vast majority of our survivability. Xaku has a 25% to avoid enemy fire completely as their passive. However, Vast Untime boosts this all the way up to 75%, and gives a 75% damage reduction to AoE attacks as well, which originally it didn't and was a big problem with Xaku's survivability. When you cast Vast Untime though, all ability time is freed, apart from Pillage, which is really nice, allowing you almost 100% uptime on both Whisper and Gaze. Not only that, when you cast the ability, you do an AoE explosion that is going to do damage to everything inside the AoE, which will also slow everything that gets hit by it, and then makes everything 50% more vulnerable to void damage. This, when combined with Whisper, gives you a huge damage buff, which can help you slice through the enemy super easily at high level. You can see in the footage, the best thing about Vast Untime is you can, uncast it and recast it again, meaning that you have that slow and additional damage on demand, while not losing much duration on your 1 and 3. It makes Xaku incredibly comfy to play. So as always, the build is going to be a huge part of how we're going to play the frame, and Xaku is no exception. We got Growing Power, Transient Fortitude, Humble Intensify, all for power strength on here to boost the damage from Whisper, the Slow from Vast Untime, and the Strip from Pillage. Fleeting and Streamline is going to make everything as cheap as possible to cast, which means we can spam our 4 to our heart content. Prime Continuity is going to cancel the duration, or counter the duration loss from Transient and Fleeting. Adaptation is going to be for damage reduction from taking enemy fire, and then Prime Shield Footy to not get knocked down at all. Energize for energy generation, and Strike is going to boost the speed of your melee. Then the playstyles basically keep Pillage up as much as you can, keep Whisper up, cast and recast Vast Untime anytime you need a damage buff against a group of enemies. If you don't need the buff, you can just keep Vast Untime running for that 75% dodge chance. It's not a difficult one to play, but damn, it's effective. I'll be honest, Xaku, I leveled them when they first came out and thought, meh, and shelved them. Going back to play them after all the Helminth thing, all the buffs, they are really fun to play. Powerful, does a lot of damage, has crowd control, defense stripping, survivability. They really are a bit of a beast now, and is incredibly comfy to play. The pausing of the timers means you're not constantly chasing timers, which makes this an incredibly chill build, as opposed to some of the others that you spend the entire time on the edge. We could have gone a lot further in this run, however, it was already, silly o'clock in the morning and tiredness was starting to kick in. We're not lacking damage, we're not lacking survivability. This really is, this build is just incredibly legit, and we could have gone on for quite a while longer. I do want to say though that it is worth keeping Xaku's 2 on at least some of your configs, mostly because you can do a pretty cool old school, old style Ember type build for speed running low levels. It's just that the damage at higher level is pretty pathetic, so we replace it with Pillage. But that doesn't mean that the ability is completely useless. So that's the Helminth version of Xaku. Comfy but powerful. Able to take on the hardest content in Warframe, come out the other side smelling of roses. Had a lot of fun with this, and I'm certainly going to be playing this a lot more in the future. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to enter the giveaway for the headset, and good luck in that giveaway. But for now, many thanks for watching, and I shall catch you in the next video.